when we're talking to parents, I think it's good for us to arm them with the ammunition of information. Welcome to Tuesday evening's edition of Let's Talk College Recruiting, brought to you by Baseball Bluebook. I am joined, as always, partner in crime, Eric Wibna, and we're going to talk baseball at the youth level, high school level, travel level, and college level. Welcome, Eric.
Hey, thanks, Walter. Good to be with you. Hope everything's going well.
Going well. I just watched The Year Without a Santa Claus. No, I actually watched Santa Claus is Coming to Town with Chris Kringle and the Winter Warlock, and I feel like I'm 8 years old and ready for the holiday. Cannot wait.
That's great. Yep, it's an exciting time. Lots of stuff going on.
This is a busy time of year, and a lot of people, believe it or not, across the country are actually getting revved up for high school baseball. Had a lot of interaction today with folks on the West Coast, down in Nolens, Louisiana, where they're basically starting to shake off the cobwebs and dust off the cleats and spikes and get ready for a little high school baseball. So we're going to talk a little bit today about Juco, NAIA, NCAA, and a lot of questions that we're getting, Eric, throughout the week are, let's get some differences out there. What are some of the differences? And are Juco colleges really in demand? You talk to a lot of Juco coaches. You talk to a lot of Division III coaches. What's your vibe as far as the enrollment and the interest levels with regard to the programs, in the coaches that you're talking with?
All I'm hearing is they've got a lot to choose from. I think a lot of people are starting to kind of wise up to it. I think they're starting to take a look at different programs. I was actually just on today with a D3 coach, and just listening to these guys talk, there's not a lot different as far as how they run their program as a D1 coach, right? It's just a different caliber, especially D3 when you're talking academics as well. The academics are top notch. I think it's just a matter of, kind of what they're looking for. And one of the things that he did mention today, which was very interesting, he said, you got the 5 tools, right? And he knows that they're not going to get a 5-tool kind of guy or even a 4-tool guy. They're happy if they can get a 1-tool with 2 or 3 tools that have potential. And I think he said it was very interesting because it really ties in a lot of things we've talked about as the development side. If you're not quite fully developed, if you're kind of a late bloomer, you've got a lot of potential. D3 program, Juco program, these are great programs because they really focus on that development side.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity today to talk to one of the country's best NAIA coaches, which, really is an uncovered jewel. It's kind of one of those things that not enough people have access to because most of the NAIA schools are in the South and in the Midwest and West Coast. And one of the interesting things that we discussed today is the age of the game. And as you alluded to just a few seconds ago, coaches unilaterally across all divisions, we get, so caught up in Division I that we think it's just a Division I level, when in reality, that only pertains to anywhere from 10 to 12,000 student athletes. Yep. And the vast majority are playing at the Division III and Juco levels. A lot of these coaches are getting bigger, faster, stronger, older student athletes because of not only the transfer portal, the extra years of eligibility will come to an end, but right. Parents need to understand this postgraduate / academy craze is getting bigger. It's something that we need to discuss and pay attention to. And the Juco student athlete that transfers after 2 years, and now we add that fall transfer component. The NAIA coach that I spoke with today was telling me he's got 5 Division I transfers coming in, January. So think about that. That's 5 student athletes that are coming in that have some pedigree that, you know, this type of a program, they're going to play the best 9 and create the best roster. And, you know, it really, you know, you could be one of those gentlemen that's on the NAIA roster and look around and say, suddenly there's no room at the inn for me. So
Yeah.
it's a topic that I think we need to cover. And I think enough parents are asking us specifically, you know, how do we combat this? How do we approach this? How do we engage with regard to recruiting? So I think that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And suddenly my phone is blowing up with Twitter questions. So, you know, and that's what we're here for. We really want to answer, you know, Eric talks to coaches all throughout the country. He talks to equipment companies. We're involved and we're engaged with the coaches, we're the instructors,
Yep.
the equipment manufacturers. And so this is something that whatever your questions are, we want to provide you with the information or we'll give you our opinions and our thoughts. And when we talk to the coaches on Thursday evenings or throughout the week, as Eric does, we'll be sure to ask these questions and post the answers as we are able to get to them. So,
Walter, I think that's a really good point. You know, a lot of this is our opinion. But I think what we try to do most of the time is get the advice and the questions from the actual people, right? From the equipment manufacturers, from, you know, I've had trainers on. We've had a lot of things with health and wellness. You know, the mental game. You know, we want to bring access to all facets of the game to you players and parents. And I think that's really the most important, because, you know, our opinion is just our opinion. We've seen some things. It's kind of what we do all day long, so we better understand it. But I think the real goal is to point you in the right direction and just give you the information and let you make the best decision that you can make.
and I want to make sure we explain to parents or student athletes, you can ask a question live here on the stream. If you're finding us on the YouTube channel, the Twitter, the Instagram, Facebook, go ahead and fire off your question. I'll be able to put my granny glasses on and I'll be able to read it right here. I have a few that have come in via Twitter. If you see me put the glasses on, you know there's a question coming in. But this is totally for you. This is unscripted. We don't have any direction or intent prior to coming on. We do, however, have questions that come in throughout the day or over the weekend after we've interviewed our college coaches, and we try to get to them in this type of form and during this time period. And one of the things I want to, and kind of on the topic that we're talking about, have a young man that is currently going through a postgraduate year. And he's telling me to kind of share his story with you. And he basically writes, Walter, I wanted to let you know I took a full year to get ready physically for college baseball. I knew the game, but needed a year of physical development in order to be competitive with the caliber of athletes that were at the school that I desired to attend. I was recruited, but not heavily, and nobody really told me what was coming, and I was not prepared. And so, therefore, I felt it would be in my best interest to take the extra year to get physically and academically prepared. Be sure and explain to parents what that extra / gap year involves and how it can benefit them. And Josh, I want to thank you for taking the time to send that. I think it's really an important topic. It coincides with everything that we are hearing from college coaches. I want to stress we are not advocating to take a year off. It's not for everyone.
Right.
This is something that if you feel that you're not getting the traction as a student athlete that you would like to see personally as a student athlete or as a parent of a student athlete, there are options. And a lot of times, Eric, those options are not explained enough. And so parents kind of put it off to the side because they don't have enough information about it. And I don't know, have you talked to any of the post-grad schools or academies that are popping up almost everywhere, it seems like?
I've interviewed a coach down at the IMG Academy down in Florida, and having kids from all over the country coming down there and focusing on the game. But other than that, not that many. But one comment that just to kind of piggyback on what you said, yeah, taking a year off, I think it's like anything else. There's kids that are now wanting to do that for whatever reason, and that has to be a choice that you guys make. But the flip side is a lot of times when they aren't being recruited, that's not necessarily the reason isn't necessarily because you aren't good enough. It might just because you're not looking at the right places, right? Coaches might not know who you are, right? Well, there's 1,800 programs out there, and a lot of times parents only know the ones that maybe were at a showcase or at a camp, or they got an email or they saw something on social. So, there's good reasons to do it, but there's also don't have it, it shouldn't be the reason because I wasn't recruited, because there's a lot of programs out there that are certainly looking for players. So that's just my 2 cents as well.
Well, I want to answer. Now, we just got a question in from Beth. I don't know what state. I'll put my glasses back on in a second. But one of the things that Beth is asking is about the numbers, the pure numbers, with regard to recruiting classes. So let's just take your local high school, your program, wherever your son attends or you as a student athlete are going. Understand this, and I'm going to use the round number of 10. Typically, it is much less, but let's assume there's 10 seniors on a high school baseball team. Only 1 or 2 of those student athletes are going to end up playing college baseball. So when we do the math across the board, that's really the most important dynamic for families to truly understand. You're not going to have 10 student athletes in every high school in the country. Let's break it down to 5. In Massachusetts, there's over 300 high schools.
Yep.
And if we just take 5, that's 1,500 student athletes. The math, if we took 50 states, it just doesn't add up because there's not that much room in every single recruiting class. And so what we want to make sure that you fully understand is, 1, you have to be proactive. You have to be proactive and engage college programs. And this is something that what Beth is asking is, what are the questions we should be sitting down at a table as a family and discussing? And the 5 are logistics, geographic. That's number 1. That's first and foremost. This time of year, it's time to really put this down on paper and say, okay, where do I want to attend school? Do I want my parents to be able to see me participate? So that's going to go hand in hand with logistics or geographics.
Yep.
So you have to have this threshold established. If you're willing to go anywhere in the country, okay, well, that opens up a lot of schools. If you're only willing to go within a 300-mile or 200-mile radius, that's going to limit the number of schools that you're going to open your search up to. But that's first and foremost. The next one is, how important is playing opportunity? How important is being able to be a part of a program? And that has to be on a list. So, for instance, you may live, I'm going to use New England as an example, and the 2 of the most prominent programs in our local area are Boston College, which is ACC, and Northeastern. And I'm only going to use Northeastern because they happen to be in the Boston area. And there's Connecticut and there's Rhode Island. But let's use those 2 schools. Now, do they have, an opportunity for your son to participate and play? If the answer is no, we can scratch that. The next area we want to go to is academic area of focus, meaning logistics, baseball or playing opportunity, area of academics. If you want a business school and that school is more of liberal arts or anything to do with the sciences, kinesiology, things of that nature, you're going to cross a lot of schools off. So you're going to find the more detail orientated your list is, Eric, the fewer schools are going to be, in total for you to look at. And that's really, at this time of the year, your transcript from the first 2 quarters should have been completed, and you kind of have an idea on what your transcript looks like, and your tests, ACT and SAT, should have been taken probably early November. But those first 3 aspects are going to give you a pool of universities for you to look at. And that's when the discussion begins as far as what schools you want to visit and so forth. Have you talked to a lot of Division III or Division II teams at all over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I actually talked to one of the coaches at Bridgewater today, and it's funny that you brought up the questions. And Beth, here's one. I would suggest you guys go at least take a look at my podcast. You can get on Apple Podcast or Spotify, also on YouTube, Baseball Bluebook podcast. But the reason I bring this up is Coach Davis was one of the proteges for Tim Nyman up at DeSales.
Yep.
DeSales, he's been there for 34 years. And one of the things that the coach talked about today is the four areas that the coaches are looking for from a recruiting perspective. And number one is academics. So academics is, do they have the degree or the area of study? A lot of baseball players like engineering. And so there's some schools that don't have engineering. You got to make sure that you understand what the academic side. The second one he said is financial. D3 typically is fairly expensive. But one thing that he brought up today, he said there's a list price and then there's also the price that you can get. So you can't just look at the price on yeah, exactly. I think he said it was 54,000 at Bridgewater, but but 90% of the kids there, I think he said they get at least $30,000 in some type of academic aid. And so it starts becoming more reasonable, even out of staters. The third one is social aspect, a rural atmosphere, an urban atmosphere, a large school, a small school. Those are things that the first 3 things out of 4, these coaches are telling us that they're not even looking at the baseball side yet. Academics, financial, social, and then it's the baseball. And I think that what I'm getting out of a lot of these coaches is really, if the parents aren't helping the players kind of go through this the same way the coaches are, there's going to be a disconnect. And I think that that's really important to listen to what the coaches are actually saying, and rather than what you want them to say, because they're being very open and honest on these podcast episodes of what they're looking for and what the programs are like. So it really piggybacks what you said, Walter, is you got to take there's so many other aspects of this, and we understand all the training. We understand baseball getting better and working on your physical side. Those things are all a given. That's without having to be said. But those other 3 areas are so important for that next level for what you're looking for in a program.
And I think it's important to kind of go back a little bit to what Eric just alluded to with regard to sticker shock. We have a lot of parents that are looking at universities and colleges, and they're unaware of the costs in total, meaning some schools, they'll offer tuition and books, but it has nothing to do with housing. And so part of this process is understanding the real costs. And one of the dynamics to that is, I don't know if a lot of parents understand what the FAFSA form. It's a financial aid. It's a financial aid form that gets filled out in the fall, and then there's financial aid packages that are awarded to student athletes. One of the questions that came in alluded to, if we got talking to a Division III school and they don't have scholarships, how do we expect to get any money? Division III programs, and I know this having been a coach, they typically will give back to all applicants that are accepted anywhere between 30 and 40% on average, as Eric stated. But you can accept an appeal. And so what I want to kind of bring to parents' attention today is, don't worry about what the initial award is, because you can accept that and appeal that. And let me explain how that works. Let's use a small Division III school that accepts 1,000 students for the incoming fall of 2023. But they know that based on history, that typically 40 to 50%, again, using a hypothetical number, are going to accept and actually show up on campus. So those 500 that accept and they show up, great. But those other 500 that were accepted and awarded financial aid, where does that money go if they don't, choose to attend that university? And that's where you can appeal and get access to that money that comes back in and is reallocated. So, it's important to be educated, because at the end of the day, parents want to do a couple things: find the right home, but they want to find the right home at an affordable price.
Yep.
And so, when we start talking, let's assume an average in the Northeast. I can't speak really to the West Coast. In the Northeast, Division III, they're going to range anywhere from 40,000 to as high as 70, even 80,000 when we start talking NESCAT schools like Bates, Bowdoin, Amherst, Williams, etc.
Yep.
So you get in a package and you're getting 30 to 40,000. Well, that still leaves 40,000. This is where grades come in handy, by the way. But, you can always, retake ACT or SATs and hope that you get a higher score, in hopes that will trigger a merit grant or an award from an academic perspective. But this is something, Eric and I literally just had this conversation earlier today, that there's so much information that parents do not take the time to delve deep into, that can save money, enhance your awards, your student athletes awards based on academic criteria. Also, your high school may have awards for these particular programs. But the other part is the appeal process. A lot of parents are not aware of the appeal process. And in some schools, they'll tell you after the second appeal, okay, that's enough. This is as far as we go. Others, you can just appeal until they finally, they may get up to the deadline of the summer and say, okay, we have another $4,000 for you. But unless you ask, you will not get. So, when we're talking to parents, Eric, I think it's good for us to arm them with, the ammunition of information. I think it's the best way to kind of put that.
Absolutely.
And I think, as we get these questions, one of the things that I want parents to understand is that this is a kind of an edification process that can get overwhelming. But if you take it one day at a time, you're in no rush. There is no kind of this checkered flag that's going to drop. Especially last week we had Brian O'Connor on from the University of Virginia, and he is at the Division I level. But I can attest, it happens at all levels, whether it's NAIA, junior college, or NCAA Division II or III, with some adjustment. Coaches in the spring, they're not going to turn a high school senior away. He's not going to be too late. If his talent is speaking loudly, you're going to be able to still gain acceptance into a college, right, which most parents aren't aware of. And the other is there's going to be academic and merit money available. So don't find yourself fighting time. There's still time. It doesn't mean it's generous, but it means if your student athlete has a strong spring, there's going to be opportunities that will present themselves.
I've got a question for you, Walter.
Sure.
I mean, when these programs, even people that are committed or recruited and are brought in, there's still a tryout. They're still going through tryouts, are they not? When they hit campus, right? So the timing of this, you might be committed to a program when you're 15 years old. That doesn't mean that you've got a roster spot when you're a freshman in college. You still have to get there. You're still going to compete. And more than likely, you're going to have 60, 70, 80 kids that you're going to be competing with. So from a timing perspective, you hear that all the time. When you see it on social media, I would not feel like your kid is being left behind or they're behind the curve or whatever it might be, right? Focus on your game. Those 4 areas, make sure you've got the 3 down. You know where you want to go. You know what type of academics, the financial side. If you have all of that down, you can narrow it down pretty quickly. and then go find what makes sense for you. And then you can do some more things. The Baseball Insight is a great tool to find out from recruiting classes, where are they bringing kids in, what roster spots are they filling. So there's a lot of great information that you guys can do on your own. But don't feel like you're missing out because your boy didn't get committed early on. I think that's one of those things that is, in my opinion, it's more of a social media thing and a buzz that they like to put out there.
Well, I think a lot of parents they look at the social media and assume that it's 100% accurate. And
Exactly.
I don't want to go down that road today because I think it's kind of been overdone. But I do want to touch upon one thing that you just alluded to there. I want to bring to your attention as parents why. First of all, Eric earlier, probably about 5 minutes ago, alluded to IMG Academy. And I'm getting a question and I'm going to answer that. IMG Academy, let's talk, say, 15 years ago. They were ahead of the curve. They saw this coming, and kudos to them. IMG Academy and they not just baseball, they do every sport, girls, boys, they do all the sports. And they essentially took advantage of the term gap year, and they created this world of reclassification. And they've really created this mega business model that is now being copied across the country by many, many, many people within baseball and all other sports. But IMG has created themselves to be such a big and powerful organization. Parents, do you know that IMG just purchased NCSA, which is a recruiting service that charges upwards of $2,500 to as much as $7,500? Now, why do you think IMG purchased NCSA? And the reason for that is uneducated, not a lot of information, and they get these parents that run around at the last minute and they want to pay that money, not necessarily just to IMG, for that extra year to kind of take a step back and regroup and try to get as organized as possible. But the bottom line is gap year, postgraduate year, recruiting services. They all are after the uneducated, uninformed parent and student athlete. We've listened to college coach after college coach, week after week say, I don't like the blanket email bombs that I get. I don't like the emails that come in that aren't personalized. I don't like the emails that come in with a bunch of hashtags and all kinds of, promotional material. They want to hear from the student athlete directly. That's what we're trying to do, one play at a time. And so here is a question from Daniel. And Daniel, let me just see where you're from, Daniel, real quick. You are from Visalia, California. That's the California State League, and the wind blows out of there really powerful. I know Tyler gave up a jet airliner coming out of there. But Daniel wants to ask, I've heard Walter, talk about reclassifying. If I could go over it again with regard to Tyler, I believe you're referring to. When I said Tyler graduated high school at 17, if I had it to do all over again, would I have reclassified him? Yes. But understand two things. One, at a certain age, probably in that freshman, sophomore window, Tyler demonstrated a superior skill set that I could foresee gaining the interest of Division I coaches. That's number one. Number two, he went to a pretty stern boarding school after his sophomore year. When I talk about, if I had it to do all over again, I would have repeated Tyler as a sophomore going into that new school, that boarding school. And let's stop for a second and make sure I'm clear, crystal clear. Reclassifying just for the sake of, kind of pulling the reins back a little bit to make your son older and playing in a, if he's 15 and he's going to go play 14U baseball, that's not what this is about. This is about the long-term game. This is about the world that college coaches they're putting out the yellow caution flag, and I'm talking NAIA, Juco, all divisions. The game is older. It's going to stay older because we have access to older, experienced student athletes. Therefore, the high school graduate that comes in not prepared strength-wise, not prepared skill set-wise, may not be prepared academically, and needs that additional year of growth. Okay, well, that's where the reclassification would come in, not purely from an athletic perspective. So, Daniel, when I talk as a parent from that perspective, it's not from a baseball perspective. When Tyler graduated high school, he was 6'4", he was 200 pounds, but he was still not into his man body. And if you go look at Tyler's statistics in college as a freshman, he had a successful year, but he had a tremendous sophomore year. And that's when physical maturation, because he was 18 at that point, turning 19. Yep. So if he had been a freshman at that 18, 19-year-old window, who knows what would have happened. So the biggest thing is college coaches are essentially telling us across the board, you have to be physically prepared. You have to be academically prepared. You have to have daily disciplines, routine, but most of all, structure. And so that's what that extra year is really all about. And so, Eric, when you're talking to a post-grad school or a Division III school, and they bring this topic up, do you ever get any insight from what they're feeling with regard to that post-grad or that gap year?
Yeah, you know what? I think most of them are they don't really talk about that much. What they're doing is they're really talking about the potential, because a lot of these schools, that's back to the playing time. You had mentioned, do you want to play? It really has to do, and I think you guys, the parents, know their kids. They know if they've filled out their body, if they've hit that next level, and if they've got the potential and the growth potential, depending on where you want to go and what opportunities they have. I think that's how you need to really look at it. It is individualized. Walter is exactly right. This is kind of like the gap year. This is not something you do from a baseball perspective. It's the long term. There's reasons why you hold boys back a year. I mean, that they aren't mature as much as you hear that a lot more with the boys versus girls. But yeah, the coaches that I talk to really are taking a look at that, the potential, and is there a tool that they can work on. One of the things, and I know I kind of go off on a tangent, Walter, I apologize, but I think that it's less important that they have the tools. It's more important that they see the potential of the tools. And these coaches at the Division III, the Juco, the NAIA, they love the development side. I mean, everybody I talk to, that's what they're looking for. They're looking to see this talent that they can help develop and and take them to that next level, which is really, that's probably the biggest difference between a D1. The D1s are coming in. These kids are ready. They're going. There's not a lot of development that goes on. But at those other levels, that there's a lot more opportunity to develop the skills that the players have.
So a question that just came in, so many people offering advice and so many recruiting services, who to listen to, who's knowledgeable. The end of the day, you take bits and pieces from all of us, regardless of, who you think you don't like, doesn't matter. The information is what's key. Don't focus on the tone. Don't focus on how it's disseminated. Try to hear the information that's relevant, but more importantly, important to you. That's all that matters. It really doesn't matter. This isn't a fight to be right. This isn't a fight to be heard. It's simply a matter of passing a baton, providing access to the information. And that's why when we talk to these college coaches, we're asking questions that are relevant today, not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago. It's what is it going to be today? Question I asked, a couple of the college coaches today, what it's going to be like in 4 or 5 years. I spoke with a Division I coach last evening, kind of off the record, And they think by 2025, college baseball takes on a whole new look. And so it's very important for parents to understand you're not running out of time.
Right.
There's still opportunities. Now, there's not a lot of them if your son is a 2023, but there are opportunities. It's okay to do two things. One, you don't have to chase the big money college programs. And by that, I mean, a lot of times when I talk to parents and I talk to student athletes, I want to go to Amherst. I want to go to Vanderbilt, these big money schools. Heck, I talked to the NAIA coach today. I'm going to tell you who it is. Coach Seatinger down at Georgia Gwinnett, National Power Division II NAIA school. For a full year, it costs $5,800. Think about this for a second. For 1 year of education, it costs $5,800. And they're a world. They have scouts at all of their games. They're located in Georgia, obviously. But my point is if people start talking baseball in college, do you hear them say, I want to go to Georgia Gwinnett? No. But yet every Division I transfer is fighting to get access to that program. Ask yourself why. Affordability and exposure.
Absolutely.
And playing in a warm weather state. So it's important to understand what's the end game. And that leads me to my question here. So I have a parent from Iowa, and I know it's about to get really snowy in Iowa.
Hey, Iowa, my hometown, my home state. Good to hear from this person.
The Hawkeyes. I guess the Cyclones too. But the big thing to understand is this: what's the end game with regard to college? It's not professional baseball. And so, as Larry is asking, when you're looking at a college rank. He wants me to rank in order what, the priorities, in my opinion, are. I can't speak for everyone. For me as a dad, it was the academic degree, meaning I wanted a college degree. I didn't graduate from college. I've said it enough on here. I can get a bag of chips and a beer at a local bar because I was a pretty good high school baseball player, but I didn't have a degree. So therefore, I was considered an uneducated man. And so it was important for me as a dad to make sure or hope my sons became college educated. And for all those people that send me messages, well, college degree isn't all everything. You can be a plumber, you can be a carpenter. You're absolutely correct. What does a college degree allow your student athlete to do later on in life as a spouse, a parent, etc.? College degree shows that you were dedicated, disciplined, and you had a focus. You showed up every day. You had study or work habits, and that you completed them within 4 or 5 years, and you earned the highest level of a degree post high school. And I'm not talking about graduate degrees or master's degree. And so it's a piece of paper that tells an employer that you're dedicated, that you can be trusted, and that you will be absolutely accountable each and every day. You will show up. The other thing is depending upon your area of major or academic interest, it's going to allow you to move up, whether it's a criminal law degree, a science-based degree with regard to nursing, et cetera. Elementary school teachers. Here's the other thing, digress real quick. Male student athletes that major in youth, as far as teaching, elementary school teaching, you can almost guarantee yourself getting full scholarships if you are a young male that aspires to be an elementary school teacher. I just found that out today. But my whole point of that is looking at college is the end game is beyond the sport. It's after you're done playing. Playing professional baseball is icing on the cake if it happens, but the chances are it probably won't. And so look for a school that's affordable, that is someplace that is attainable for you as a family, and then where there are going to be opportunities to play.
Yep.
And Eric, I want to touch on something. When you talk to these college coaches throughout the week, do they talk to you about playing time for the younger student athletes that come in early in their, after their freshman year?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that they when they get down to the baseball, to tie into what you were saying, those 4 areas that you need to look at is the academics, the finance, the social, and then the baseball. Playing opportunity is one that the opportunity is there at those D3 and Juco and NAIA schools. I mean, I think when in most cases, I think it was with the Tulane coach that you had on. It might have been the Rice coach that I had on. They said that don't expect to play a freshman at those levels. I mean, just don't expect it. So if your son wants to play their freshman year, they're more than likely, even if they're top notch, they're probably going to be sitting that first year. Now, that doesn't mean that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You're part of a great program. There's a whole lot of great benefits to learn behind other people, learn the program, different things. But the playing opportunities, there's significantly more, at least from my perspective, of what I've seen at those other areas, because it's just a different. It's just a different setup. And back to the comment that people say, hey, you don't need to go to college. You're absolutely right. But if you want to play college baseball, then you got to find a place that makes sense. And maybe a Juco school is the right thing, because you could go in, you could take a lot of those classes that might set yourself up for great things from a plumbing or electrical or HVAC, whatever it might be. There's still some really good things that you can do. And it'll never hurt taking an accounting course or something else, that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, there's a lot of things that you should know that a school could potentially benefit you for. So
we're getting text messages, college coaches that are watching us tonight, and one of them just brought up a great point, and I want to make sure I as we're talking NAIA and junior college, one of our coaches that has been on with us a few times wants me to make sure student athletes and parents pay attention to this. When you go to a junior college, it is imperative, critical, that you must know that the courses that you are taking will transfer
Absolutely.
to a 4-year school.
Absolutely.
Do not allow, now I'm not saying that junior colleges across the board do this, but it happens. You sign up for classes that are not transferable credits. By the time you're done with your second year of junior college, you may think that you are prepared to be a junior academically at a 4-year school, either an NAIA school or an NCAA school, but you will find that your classes, your credits are not transferring. So it is important to sit down, if you're attending a junior college, and going through with an advisor, making sure that the classes that you are taking are transferable into either an NAIA school or an NCAA school.
Great point.
Because if you do not, you may show up with only 2 years of eligibility athletically, and
Right.
you might be 3, and in some cases 4 years away from a 4-year degree.
Great point, Walter. Great point.
Time information.
Yeah.
Thank you, Coach.
And it may be different from school to school as well. Just because you're getting accredited school or classes at one community college doesn't mean that they may transfer to an out-of-state school. So really take a look at the program, who they work with. Locally here in Missouri, you can go right through it, and there's classes that'll say that these are transferable to Missouri State or to Mizzou or to other 4-year schools. So just do your homework. It's not, you can't take some of those. I think we used to call them the basket weaving classes or different things. They may not transfer to a 4-year school, but there are the core curriculum that you can take.
Well, I want to make sure that all parents know this is a platform on Tuesdays where we're answering questions, whether they came in after our Tuesday discussion. Maybe Eric or I received these questions during the course of the week via email or Twitter, etc. You can always reach us. You can reach us here on the YouTube channel. First of all, we're going to ask you to subscribe. That's number one. Number two, if you like this content, we just need you to hit the like button. Even if you're here every week, because that helps us grow the channel. That helps us grow and get information out. The other thing is hit that notification bell so that when we do release videos throughout the course of the week, that you get that notification, both with regard to Eric's podcast and YouTube channel, as well as here on the Baseball Lifer. The other thing is to understand that on Thursday evenings, we make this available. The Baseball Bluebook is essentially becoming the access portal to the college coaches. That's what we're making this. And we're making it available so that you can hear directly from these coaches across divisions, across levels, in order for you to gather as much information as possible. Over the next few weeks, we have Ole Miss head coach Mike Bianco, national champion, College World Series 2022, Mike Bianco. We have Cliff Godwin. We have from East Carolina. We have Tracy Woodson from Richmond University. This week, coming up on Thursday, we have Coach Jim Foster from Northwestern. So we're talking about high-level academic schools. In the future, we're going to have Bates head coach. Coach Martin is going to be joining us. We're going to be talking to Coach John Casey, 40-year head coach at Tufts University, now helping his son at Johnson Wales. So we're talking to Division II, Division III, NAIA, Division I, but we're doing this so that you can ask questions. So get engaged, get involved, make sure you're spreading the word, and send us any kind of questions that you want to have answered. And Eric, can you want to kind of share with people how to find your podcast over on Apple?
Yeah. It's just under Baseball Bluebook podcast. You can do it on any of your streaming podcast services, but most likely on Apple and Spotify. But yeah, what Walter likes to interview these guys. It's just a little bit different. What he does. We're really trying to bring you different type of content to really try to answer your questions. And a lot of mine, I'm hitting kind of the Northeast right now, from Lafayette, Frostburg, Washington College, Stevenson, Lock Haven, Salisbury. I've had all these guys on, so you can go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I release between 3 and 4 a week. And so we are really trying to get the information out there. And I'll tell you what, I really, really enjoy it. These guys, you can really hear their heart and their commitment to raising young men. I think that's important for people to make a decision. A single email or 5 minutes at a showcase or a phone call with coaches, that's nice. But if you're listening to them just talk, sharing their heart and listening to their baseball journey, where they came from, one of the things you're going to realize is these guys, they were just like your kids. They most of them are under 30, under 35 years old. They had to go through the kind of the path of hard knocks and work through and figure out what they wanted to do. And I think it just gives a good perspective of what the life of a baseball guy is and the commitment it takes and the love that they have for the game and for their players.
Well, I want to wrap up by telling student athletes and parents, we're going to offer something a little different. Each week, I'm going to give away a free book to anyone that submits a question here on the YouTube channel. You submit a question.
That's awesome.
Let's say there's 10 of them. We'll get out 10 books. We'll
Awesome.
do that for the rest of the month of December. So we have the shift, the recruiting process. We have the processes I'm holding here, as well as if you have younger student athletes, fun over fear. But if you submit a question and it's here on the YouTube channel, I'll go ahead and reach out to you, get your address, and send you out a book 100% free. So I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Be sure and join us this Thursday, Coach's Corner, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Jim Foster from Northwestern just took the job this past season. Former West Point head coach, gone to the NCAA regionals, I think 2 or 3 of the last, I think he's been for 2 out of the last 3 years, but now new head coach at Northwestern. He'll be joining us Thursday evening at 9. Spread the word, ask us some questions, and we'll see you next Tuesday to answer any and all of your questions as it pertains to college recruiting. Eric, thank you very much, Captain.
Hey, thanks, Walter. Great show. Thanks for the information, guys. This is great. Those books are amazing. And Walter, when are you going to get your little promo video out? That was awesome.
I'll start pushing that out a little bit over the end of the week, right after the holidays are underway. But I have a few new videos that I'm going to be adding in there.
That's great.
Some coaches within the SEC that are going to be holding up the book and saying they're sharing their thoughts. So
That's great.
I appreciate you bringing that up. But we'll see you next Tuesday, 9 p.m., or this Thursday at 9 p.m. when we talk to Jim Foster. Thank you to everybody. See you next week.
Thank you.